Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you as usual from the Extreme Studios in the Pine Hills Palace. I have this smooth R&B late night radio voice going on because I'm going back to 1985, Christmas time, late in the evening. We have a movie coming out starring Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd called Spies Like Us. This is on our list that all you listeners were voting on, that we had top secret just edged it out. We said, you know what? We got to go a little bizarre. We got to go a little Spies Like Us, because I got to tell you, RDV from the Great Midwest, who's joining me again tonight. When this movie came out, a lot of people did not like it. A lot of people didn't get the meta stuff. And I couldn't help but think in our last conversation, when we were talking about this Zucker Brothers spoof stuff of Airplane and all that, which Top Secret basically was, is that they had a lot of jokes on multiple levels. And it's been a while since I rewatched this movie because it can be painful.
Yeah.
I kind of was like, yeah, they were really shooting for that here in this film with some of the jokes they have, especially if you grew up in the 80s like I did. But you, as a 90s guy, what did you think of it?
Well, I was an 80s and 90s guy, so
Yeah,
I was watching stuff in the 80s back in the day too.
of course.
For me, for this movie, you said this was my second time watching this. Now that I'm older, I understand more of the jokes.
Yes.
When you're younger and you're kind of like you don't really know as much, they'll throw some zingers in there, and like I don't get what they're doing. But once you start realizing they're just doing a parody of other stuff, yeah, it starts to click a little bit more. Is the movie a little dry? The Dan Aykroyd parts are a little dry. Yes,
Intensely so, I think, because that's Dan Aykroyd.
The Chevy Chase parts are fun. You know, it's typical Chevy Chase. From the moment we meet him there, he's in the office, government office. He's watching an old movie himself. And the guy's yelling at him. He's like, "Aren't you worried about the test?" And he's like, it's my third time taking it. It's like, and he's like, but yeah, they can change the question. He's like, okay, let me look at this. Like, and the question it's like, how would you react to some of this? Do you frown? Would you say, or whatever? It's like, he's like, of course, it's D, multiple, all above. And the funny thing is that the questionnaire and all stuff that, it's like the reactions is like, it sounds like every freaking job application I've ever taken. The weirdest, so where they actually the same question 5 different times, to try to trip you up. But overall, like I said, for this movie, I can see why it was a box office bomb. Despite the fact that it made its money back through basically the residuals, whether it be VHS come out later or in DVD sales. So it quickly became a cult movie despite the fact that it wasn't that widely accepted. And I think you had Fletch, which was the year before this.
It was the same year. It was earlier in the year.
Same year.
85.
And that really overshadowed this. And people were also going off. Remember, like the year before, 84, you had Ghostbusters. So it's kind of like, why am I watching a movie with Dan Aykroyd with Chevy Chase? It was an odd pairing. Even though they were both SNL alumni, or not alumni, but they were still. I don't know if Aykroyd was still doing anything with Saturday Night Live or not at this time, or if he was just doing movies. One of the things I did like in this movie though was Dan Aykroyd's smoking hot wife, Donna Dixon.
Yes.
Who the show. Bosom Buddies. Hot in that show. Probably the best thing about that show, which is available in our archive.
Another potential streaming service. Yeah, I think the thing with Spies Like Us, it actually did fairly well at the box office, but it's hard for us because we don't do the deep dive of like, how much did it make on a re-release, right, or this or that.
Yes.
And games start getting played in the 90s with that, especially with the secondary market. It did not get really good reviews from critics, and people already like me who were used to Chevy Chase at this time, who basically is SNL to me, and Dan Aykroyd. Dan Aykroyd's a phenomenal talent. He's a better writer and thinker than he is actor. Not that he's a bad actor, but there's people like that. I think a modern version of that, but 1 or 2 levels down, would be Will Ferrell. I mean, Anchorman's a tremendous concept. He nails it, but there's a lot of stuff he does that just doesn't work, even though the idea might be there. But Dan Aykroyd, he, Ghostbusters fame, all the stuff, really sharp guy. It's an interesting pairing because you're right. There's points in this movie that you're like, man, they're really, But then you realize that I think it's all intentional. It's not like they're trying to suspend the laughs
No.
through it. They're trying to make it painful for you, it's hard to make something funny that you don't hate, that's not go away hate, and be painful about it. Because this movie just is a residual of every kind of like 80s type of thing going on in it. In 80s movies, you would see things like, if you're in high school or going into college, the stress of trying to like get accepted, how to cheat. We get that in here early on. This may have been something you didn't pick up on, and depending on the level of quality of the print that you see, when he's watching that movie on TV at his desk, I mean, that's Ronald Reagan, who was the president at the time. So it's kind of like they throw in a lot of these little things that isn't necessarily funny, but you're like, what the fuck does that mean? Why is that in here? What are they trying to say or do? I don't get it. I don't know. I don't care. It's stupid. And if you don't get it early on, it really sours you for the rest of the film.
And after you're done watch this movie and you're like, kind of like, hey, now you're kind of puzzled, like, why does it seem kind of familiar? This is Mark Babaloo Mandel, who also is with his writing partner Lowell Ganz, who are famously known for writing City Slickers in 1991, A League of Their Own in 1982. Also did Parenthood, the remake, in 1989. And you also have Splash, which came out in 1984. So it kind of the same kind of humor you get, especially with Splash. It was okay. People there, and it has that's another movie. It has a cult following, but I don't think it's that big of a movie. Also, Dan Aykroyd had a hand in writing this.
Yes,
and explains why, because Dan Aykroyd's wife being in this, because she was in every movie he did.
Yep.
Which I still don't know how he landed her. Then again, she did. I will say this: she did improve from
the old-fashioned way.
I will say this:
I don't mean he bought her; he made her laugh.
Hey, I will say this: Dan Aykroyd's a better-looking dude than Paul Stanley.
Who?
Guy from Kiss.
I know that Paul Stanley. Are you serious, bro?
Yeah, she was with him before she got with Aykroyd.
I'm gonna disagree on that.
No, dude, he looked like a dweeb.
Paul Stanley was a sex symbol in the 70s and 80s, bro.
Yeah, pay-per-view on drugs, probably.
And anyway, we'll leave it at that. Great voice. He actually sang in Phantom of the Opera in the 90s. What does this have to do with the 80s film? Well, it's a lot of the backstory. So this is what you get here that you don't get another chance. Look, it's interesting. We tie some of these things together with different times and frames and all that too. I was not expecting that the Kiss reference. I'm glad you dropped it so we can play off of that. The movie basically, again, you mentioned something earlier on, I think is really key, especially if you know some of these names and you're trying to give it a shot. When you're talking about the 80s, Ronald Reagan was the president. If you didn't live that experience or hear about it, you're only hearing about it now because of the MAGA thing with Trump. That's his idea that he had when he was in California in the 70s and all that. And so some people started poking fun, but basically around 85, 86-ish was the ultimate Americana peak at that time, before you had the 88 elections and everything. And they throw all these 80s things in it, like, that aren't really funny in themselves, but they have a deeper meaning. Like, for example, these two guys are not necessarily the brightest of the bunch, but they think they're a lot smarter than what they are. And
they're bumbling idiots.
They're dopes. So what it is they're like, they get kind of like, and this is the beauty of it. The government's like, hey, we got to take these two guys. We need two guys that we can basically are expendable. Hey, let's put these guys in it. Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because you would never think of America at the time going, oh no, there's no way they would do that. Government's very serious. People who go there are the best of the best intelligent. The 80s really tried to spoof that ever since about the 60s and 70s. And so when they finally like parachute land and where they're at, they've got the old army camo stuff on. And so, of course, being an 80s film, what do you have to have in it to make it a successful film besides booty, sweat, and ass? You got to have ninja. So all these ninja jump down and surround him. And Chevy Chase, you have to have a straight guy to play off of. And that's what Dan Aykroyd does so good.
Yeah.
But there's the scene in there where he takes out his old wallet, and he's got a picture of his sister, whatever it is. Like, it's my sister. Y'all can take turns with her. And it's like, whatever. And they're just so oblivious to what that was going on. But a part of you going, why would ninja come down and attack these guys? Because it's an 80s film, not because it's realistic. That's the whole point. And so some of these spoof movies, it really is one of those pop culture references that you just may not get some of it or whatever. I thought it was funny. Everyone talks about the scene where they're spinning around in the chamber while they're training or whatever, and they've got the weird mouth things going to get coffee or whatever. And to me, that's a Moonraker ripoff. So I don't know if that was just they wanted to do it, and they're supposed to be training, running around with their guns on, and they're talking. They know how to take something that you just as a routine thing that's not funny in and of itself and make it absurd, and that's what these guys are really good for. Dan Aykroyd's phenomenal with it. Chevy Chase just has the physical energy to just, he is funny. That's not what he does, but he is. The way he looks and stuff, the physical humor. He was peak in this movie and really fletched this year.
Just I said, when it comes to this movie, the first thing you think of is doctor.
It's so bad.
Doctor. It is dumb.
It's so dumb.
But if you say that somebody, they know exactly what movie you're talking about. It is such a popular quote because it's so over the top and stupid, and it's meant to be that way. That's why you remember it.
Yeah.
And like I said, Chevy Chase is one of those guys where I like him on SNL, and I know Ronnie, who's been in our audience before, I mentioned this. Chevy Chase is better off on SNL than he is in movies.
I disagree totally. He was too smart, too good for Saturday Night Live.
He maybe has a couple movies that are hits that I like him up, but majority lies he was a better SNL weekend news update guy, or just in general.
We'll just disagree on that.
Oh, I'm saying because I can't think of a lot of movies that I like them in.
That doesn't mean he wasn't good, but you look at him in the movie, I think, differently than Saturday Night Live or than SNL, right? So I mean, I think you bring up a good point because you used to be a sketch actor. It's a certain kind of humor, and if you don't like it or if it runs its course, right, then you can run into trouble, right? Because if you do watch this movie, one criticism you could have of Chevy Chase, which is valid, is, hey, I saw all these jokes on Saturday Night Live. I saw all these jokes.
I saw these jokes in Caddyshack. I've seen them all in National Lampoons. It's the same jokes. Yeah.
You could argue that, Jim Carrey's got all those and this and that or whatever.
And that's a problem.
It is. Yeah. It is. You can do too much, and it can run its course. Absolutely, or whatever. Yeah.
I said for me, for Chevy Chase, watching him in a movie has always been National Lampoon's Christmas. This because it's not just him in there; it's everyone around him, the situation, Christmas, all that stuff. It makes the movie more pop for me. Because like you bring up National Lampoon's European Vacation. It's like it has some cool scenes in there, but it's not as cool as the original.
Absolutely correct.
Original one,
Yeah.
So.
And somehow people like the third one a lot.
Yeah, is that the Vegas one?
No, that's the fourth one. The third one is the Christmas one. The first one is.
The third one is Vegas. Yeah, third one is Christmas. Yeah, that's right.
Right.
Yeah. But getting back to it, I said Chevy Chase has this. It's just like Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey does everything. He's a one note, what you're kind of getting with it, and either you love it or you hate it, But obviously, like I said, this is supposed to be a spoof movie. You can tell by the photo behind us, looking over here, what it's gonna be. Chevy Chase is a funny man. Dan Aykroyd playing the serious guy, he's perfect at that. He does that in Ghostbusters. He does that in pretty much anything he stars in. Same thing with Blues Brothers.
Yep,
he wanted to do.
Blues Brothers is a fine movie.
Yeah.
But I was not sitting there laughing at any of the scenes because the Jim Belushi, everyone always talks about like Chris Farley. Well, Jim Belushi kind of did it first and did it better. It's just one of those things where it's not bad. Yeah. Well, yeah, John Belushi, excuse me. Jim Belushi is brother. We've covered in a few films too. But yeah, and he was a SNL guy back around all this time.
John Belushi was kind of like playing the crude, crass character like he played in Animal House. So
yeah, absolutely.
But like I said, I've noticed that like Dan Aykroyd does a lot of buddy movies, and that's kind of what this movie is. This is like a buddy cop. It's not a buddy cop, but a buddy movie to watch with.
Yeah, and I think it has to be. I think if Chevy Chase does it by himself, it's not the same. Same thing with Dan. Chevy needs somebody to play off. So I will say this, since there are some movies perhaps you haven't heard of, like I'd mentioned last time, Foul Play and Seems Like Old Times. They're not bad movies, but you go, wait a minute, they're trying to make him like this likable sort of like romantic lead or whatever with the sharp wit and everything. You can judge for yourself whether or not you like that or whatever. But the late 70s going into 80s was definitely a weird time for that because generally speaking in the 70s, a lot of mainstream movies weren't necessarily positive, which you've talked about how you like movies that have a positive
Yeah.
a message, or they're fun or whatever. And I'm not saying that there wasn't that, but there seemed to be a lot more heavy dramas, things that are more preachy or messagey that they're trying to get into, and angst and all that stuff, and violent. And so that really crowded out a lot of things that in the 80s, there's the opposite complaint in the 80s. A lot of people are like, there's a lot too much saccharine, watered down crap. Like this movie doesn't really do anything. It's just a component of its time. It's really got stupid jokes, even like when they're in Russia or whatever like that, right? And they're in the
what's
snow,
so
and they're checking the chick,
so
dressing and stuff like that. It's a dumb juvenile joke. There's no need for it, but it's just, I mean, it was a movie to just go watch in the 80s and have fun. It wasn't a big deal. It was really
this
mindless.
movie was more known as fact like, hey, remember that one movie Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd did? The one movie they did together.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what it came as. So it is a peculiar movie, but it does have some funny comedy in it. Dan Aykroyd, once again, playing the nerd, and this, being the guy who knows about the missiles and all that stuff. He
seems like a scientist. He does seem that. He's really, really good in that role.
And I think that has to do with his role in Ghostbusters.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, and he's basically more perfecting that role, being more the kind of like the I'm smart, but I'm not too smart. It's kind of his same character he played in Trading Spaces, or Trading Places, right? Trading Spaces is a show. That's yeah. So I said, as far as this movie goes, it's something you have to watch through. It's not something like it's not a movie where like I'm gonna go back and like, you know what, I gotta watch Spies Like Us. It is. I
watch it when I want to feel pain, like if I want to make sure, like, I'm not dying or something like that. Because if I don't react strongly and viscerally to this in a negative manner, then I need to seek help or something.
It's a movie that Floridians watch when they want to experience winter.
Well, I want to find a couple things going here, because when I say you're a 90s kid, because that was when you were a teenager, and for me, that was the 80s. So I want to combine a couple things Jay and Desert saying. Jay is absolutely on point when he's talking about Fletch was the last great Chase film before his downward spiral, because he definitely had that. He was coked out of his mind, like everybody was in the 80s. I'm just simply saying that's how it is. He was very difficult to work with and all that too. He was definitely known for being an asshole on set. And I don't mean a diva. There's a little difference there. And he wasn't quite successful enough as a leading man on his own, to your point, but he's great when he has somebody to play off, or it's a physical thing. Fletch is his best thing because he got to ad-lib a lot of it and just kind of do it on its own, and it's his being performance. It's just capturing him at the right time. His real name, I believe, is Chevy Chase. And yes, there is a Chevy Chase, Maryland, so the joke's not on it. But Chevy Chase, I believe, if I recall, a quick Google foo might sort this out, I believe he's related to somebody from the Constitution of the United States. Like, Chevy Chase has a hardcore American lineage to it. And I don't mean patriotism. I mean coming from like upper elite level type things. As far as I know, he's pure blue blood in that regard. He has what few people have, I believe, perfect pitch. He can play the piano by ear and just do it and noodle and everything. He's actually an extremely intelligent guy. And so the kind of humor he would go for in Saturday Night Live, it was interesting because he had that with the sarcasm, but then the physical humor. And at the time, people were usually like one or the other, or they told like filthy jokes, right? So his kind of humor was starting to go out, and definitely in the 80s here. It's just one of those things that, he is good as the father in Christmas Vacation, right? But after that, he was gone. He even had John Carpenter direct him in The Invisible, whatever, not Invisible Man, but something like that. And it was not good. And I remember going, what the fuck happened? I've got John Carpenter and Chevy Chase. This should be like A++, right?
Yeah.
And it's awful. I mean, then in the 90s, he did Talk Show because he was still really popular, and it was painful to watch. I thought, well, Arsenio Hall, what could get worse than that? Some of these other late night guys, except for the current ones. And it bombed. I think within a month, it was off the air. I am not joking. That's his downward spiral, and he never recovered, in my opinion.
Yeah, Chevy Chase, watching him in a lot of his movies, if you watched him on SNL, it's that same kind of brand of humor that he perfected there and brought it into basically the big. He blew up. He was a breakout star at SNL, and then it started doing these movies. He was big success, and then he started fizzling out because people got the point where it's like, hey, we've seen this character too many times now. It's like Jim Carrey. I don't want to see after Jim Carrey was doing he did The Mask, and then he did Ace Ventura, then he did Ace Ventura 2, and then he goes, and then you go to see him in the Batman Forever, and he's the same. It's still Jim Carrey. They call it Riddler, but it's still Jim Carrey. Like, you know, like he cannot escape his he could not escape who he was until he changed his tune by doing Truman Show.
And even Truman Show, which I like, and I always say it could be a little bit darker, and I wish it kind of went there a little bit, but it's still a good film. But you're right, he tried changing it, and what happens? You do it too late.
Yeah. Bill Murray, on the other hand, I could see there might be. Jay was saying that he was basically jealous of Bill Murray's success. A guy who came into SNL later on and then just instantly took off.
You know, and a big part of that too comes from where you're at. He Chevy Chase was your classic old school New England liberal, which meant something back then as far as, you know, where you went to school. Was it Exeter? Was it this upscale private whatever? And Bill Murray, Canadian, right? So he had a small group that had other people in it, and Canadians always think he was very nice and chill. And I'm not saying Bill is stupid, but you think of Bill as like the every guy, right? So you get an elitist snob like Chevy Chase who knows he's the best thing on Saturday Night Live, and everybody gets on great. It's an exciting new show because there's variety shows that were always popular, and if you're a popular enough star, you would have the such and such comedy hour, or really honestly, you'd get your break on Carson. That's really how big he was. And so for Chevy Chase, I'll give him credit that in terms of a comic, he wasn't the kind that would like do albums like a stand-up comic, but he had a lot of physical comedic talent that he was able to monetize. But I think he was one of the few people that could do a lot of different things, and it was hard to find the right magic formula. Now you take somebody that just yells or shouts or creates a dumb character on SNL, and you're going to get some bullshit, shitty movie monetized that nobody cares about or remembers. So despite this movie being painful, I'd much rather watch this than some of the other stuff that's out there. I mean, I look, Beverly Hills Ninja immediately comes to mind, and I go, my God, is that like the 90s equivalent of Spies Like Us? So I don't know.
The other big stars you had, like we mentioned, Dan Goodwin was with Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy was a huge star. Started breaking out. Started going to the movies. So you got Trading Places was a really big movie, and I thought, you know, as far as, you know, whatever it is this movie did not have the it factor like most of his other ones he did with other cast members from SNL. Yeah. So I mean, look at Ghostbusters, had tons of SNL people in there popping up. Like I said, you want to know if this is a good movie or a bad movie? It's neither. It's in the middle. It literally, I'm not going to say it's horrible, but I'm also not going to say it's a great movie either. There's some good one-liners in there, you know. But you look at the IMDb, and for once, I agree, it is a 6.4, and it's right down the middle. It's slightly better than being average, but like I said, it's a movie that if you are a big fan of Chevy Chase, you'll want to watch this.
Yes.
And you may not. I know what you are, Rob.
I am.
You probably say that, like I said, it's not his best film, but it's still got some funny stuff in there. You know?
He was in a show a few years back that was a side character, and I started watching it only because he was in a Community, I think it was called.
It is Community, I think.
And he plays basically how he was at the time, you know, late 60s, early 70s, kind of potentially racist, sort of whatever, and this and that. And I remember watching him going, yeah, it's pretty standard, you know, 22-minute episode shit, writing or whatever. But it has to do with chemistry and the types of jokes and stuff. And he still can do it. The guy's he oozes so much talent physically,
Fletch,
verbally.
So John Hamm.
Yeah, Fletch is just tremendous. But to go back to what somebody was saying here in chat, I'll go back to the Bill Murray thing. Bill Murray, from my understanding, could get along with people on set for the most part. Kind of likable. Chevy Chase is not a likable guy. I mean, he's very sensitive kind of soul. Doesn't know how to take. Just not tough, right? He's got that
he likes,
elitist kind of.
Yeah, he likes. I'm the star of the show, and when you're not really the star.
And he rubbed people the wrong way in Community, and you know what? If he's older, he'd put on weight. but he still has that sparkle of intelligence in his eyes, and he's quick-witted in his timing.
Yes.
And just him in some of those scenes of Community, I'm like, holy shit, is he 10 times better than anybody on that
And-
show? And you wouldn't know it till he gets on there. It's almost embarrassing how good he is.
You put him in a movie with Martin Short and Steve Martin. And
what do you call that, sir?
Three Amigos.
Which I'm looking forward to doing, because that one's actually fun and likable.
Yeah. And like I said, and sadly, like I said, Chevy Chase has always been a guy he's not a solo movie type of guy. He's not a strong lead character. Mm-hmm. He is basically your buddy movie watch. With whether, like I said, like you're watching him in this or you're watching him in National Lampoon's. He's got, he needs someone to play off of. And unfortunately, though, if Chevy Chase is being like the humorous part, and you got someone else playing the straight guy, it's like it doesn't work as well.
Yeah, Chase never recovered. He definitely got hit hard. It wasn't a complete knockout, but it was a standing 8 count. I mean, he really is like that. And I think he knows that now, but you get to a certain point in your life and your career where you go, have been a bad guy long enough, I'll never be the good guy kind of thing or whatever. And I think he's aware of it, but
he's still good.
He's still sharp.
He's still respected. He's still, and then when he hosts SNL, he's on there. He still gets laughs. Even when he was on Community, he got laughs. And he has a specific type of humor that we don't really get as much
anymore.
No, it's gone. It's gone. It's kind of, it came and it went, just like this movie. So basically, if you guys are want to watch this movie, I found this through the Internet Archive. Somebody uploaded the VHS quality. They took the VHS movie, cut it in half, and uploaded 2 parts. You can get it through Fandango, or you can go through Amazon or YouTube Premium and pay for it. I have this on VHS somewhere. I just didn't feel like pulling it out, so I was like, I'll just go look it up and see if it's online. Because like my VHS tapes are like put away in storage.
One of the interesting things whenever we do a stream is the way you and I do it, kind of really more off the cuff. I get impressed sometimes by the tangents we go off on how they're related, and I'm just thinking of one now because at the time of this recording, and I had referenced this a few weeks back on some stream, I brought up the name of an actor that I think you like, and I'm not disparaging him to poke fun at you here, but his name is Ryan Reynolds, right? And I've always thought of Ryan Reynolds as like the modern day version, kinda, of Chevy Chase, in that he seems to be very quick-witted, has a verbal delivery that's very sharp, and obviously they play to that in a lot of the movies he's in. His strengths,
fantastic.
But I think they were able to dial in with him more successfully than they were Chevy Chase, because Chevy just knocked down doors, got involved in that. National Lampoon is actually name of magazines and stuff, and there was like a Mad magazine and a Cracked and all that was popular, and it's all like a liberal uptown thing there, that they would make their own kind of humor stuff, and it got hot there for a while. But the thing that's going on now, and again, we're not really gossipers per se, but Ryan Reynolds and his wife are going through, Blake Lively, an interesting legal stuff with the guy from a movie. And I don't really get sucked in these things too much. Nothing like that really surprises me. But what surprised me about all this isn't that Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively are going through it, or the Ryan's coming to his wife's defense, or however you want to look up. They're rounding up the carriages, right? And they're showing a consolidated front. It's the fact that this guy's got his lawyers, and he's being very professional, not taking the bait. He's like, no, I'm going to not only countersue you, I'm going to sue you separately. Oh no, by the way, my lawyers have cleared me to allow me to put this stuff on public, so everybody watching could see what's going on here.
It's going
and
for public.
There's a part of me that thinks, with whatever was going on with the Oscars, which I didn't watch, I heard him and his wife kind of like joked about it or like that. Ryan, I know you're a billionaire and you don't give a fuck, rightly so, but this is kind of what happened to Chevy Chase, except Chevy had 2-3 times the talent you did. He never recovered. Ryan doesn't have to worry about it, or Blake, but it makes you just look at it and go, there can come a point, even in a very forgiving Hollywood era like there is now today, where you can do anything and get away with it, more so than back then. I think.
I feel like Ryan's humor is a little bit different than Chevy Chase's. Chevy Chase's, his character is basically the character you can hear is the same character you got.
Talk about how they're perceived as a person.
I know, but I'm just saying the character that Chevy Chase plays is the same character you see in Caddyshack. You know, where Ryan Reynolds plays different characters. He's more like he can play the funny man, but he can also play the straight character, like Dan Aykroyd in this. He did that.
I haven't seen nearly as much Ryan Reynolds stuff as you have, so
The Hitman's Bodyguard.
I
Is
don't
a
know
perfect example of
that.
that. Yeah, with Samuel Jackson and Samuel Hank.
Gotcha. Okay, I think I
yeah, but as far as the whole Ryan Reynolds thing, I mean, I'm following it, but I mean, like, here's the thing: majority of people forget about stuff and just move on, and they'll go watch another. Ryan Reynolds' career, I don't think it's going to end because of this. He's still going to get hired because that's the way Hollywood is. Until people stop watching Hollywood movies, you know, he's out. And I don't think Ryan's going to get canceled. His wife, her career is over. That's it.
You think so?
She didn't have much of a career before she married him. She did Gossip Girl, and then that was it.
She did The Shallows or something, which I thought
was the Shallows with the shark thing. Yeah,
I like that. I thought that was good.
Yeah. But I mean, like, she wasn't a big name actress, you know, really. She was just kind of like, I married a guy who's his career is basically taken off. You know, who went from doing National Lampoons, or I think he did. No, it was Van Wilder. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah,
which is also National Lampoon.
Yeah. See, but honestly though, like I said, as far as when it comes to this movie though, if you've never watched it, you do yourself a service and do watch it. You know, check it out. I'm a huge Dan Aykroyd fan, so it was great to see him in another movie, and then seeing him with Chevy Chase, which is I've never seen that before. So once again, watching this for the second time it's always fun. You know?
Dan Aykroyd.
But I'll admit though, there's parts in the movie where I'm listening there watching. I'm not laughing.
Painful, yeah. It's like poke yourself in the eyeballs, tape
but
your
eyelids
open.
But it was just because I wasn't laughing as much, I wasn't enjoying myself. It's just I didn't find the jokes. Either the jokes went above my head because they're referencing something I don't understand, or it's just because I'd rather see more Donna Dixon, who is smoking it in this. Wow, Donna Dixon. He said we brought this up earlier before everybody jumped in. Donna Dixon, Dan Aykroyd's current wife, which is really weird. That's another weird situation. They apparently, I learned they got legally separated, or not legally separate, but they're separated in 2022, but they're still married. They're not getting divorced ever, which is really just weird. But I don't know. It's
they've been together for a very long time.
Yes, yeah. She said goodbye to Paul Stanley and got with him, and then they did a cover of Playgirl. Dan Aykroyd and her were on Playgirl. I was like, what the heck? So anyway, this movie, I said, it is quirky. It's part of the Quirky Romano. Way far.
God, I forgot about that one. Look, here's the thing. There's a lot of comedy movies that might have a couple of jokes or things in them, and you watch them and you forget about them because you don't take them seriously, because they're not intelligent. They don't have to be. There's different kinds of humor. Humor is very. Look, I would say horror movies generally can be a good template, or westerns even, for things. Horror movies, not so much, and definitely not comedy. Chevy Chase is a smart guy. So is Dan Aykroyd. These guys are really good, but it's just, you're absolutely right here. It's
like
God, you can really fuck up a comedy movie much worse than you can like a horror movie. Horror movie can just be bad and laugh and be stupid or dumb. But yeah, comedy will piss you off when it's bad.
I would compare this watching a Ben Stiller movie. You know, a serious Ben Stiller movie where he's not trying to be jokey. You know, and Along Came Polly.
Oh, yeah. God.
Yeah.
Well, like what's the Will Ferrell movie one where he's roller skate? He does one off the ABA, right? The basketball one. I want to like it because I appreciate the idea of what he was trying to do. He did the one in Eurovision with ABBA music, which I like the idea. But you're watching that going, why am I watching this? Am I under the influence? I mean, it's just, is there nothing else? Blades of Glory. All these kinds of things. Yeah, I mean, Dodgeball is like a little bit above that, but not much.
Hey, Dodgeball is by far, out of all of them you just mentioned, that's way more funnier. And because of Vince Vaughn. Vince Vaughn brings the humor to it with his little one-liners. Like I said, this was basically Chevy Chase playing Fletch, watered down, and then he had Dan Aykroyd trying use playing one of his characters from SNL. I'm not sure which one, but it's just like, yeah, these guys were patsies. One guy thinks he's the latest man, Chevy Chase, and just
He's so good at it.
I know. It's I said
Yes.
every time. So that's what you're getting. If you like Chevy Chase, you'll like this movie.
Yeah, it's not
Now-
for the faint of heart.
No.
But I will say this: you made a comment. We'll close with this. Sometimes for an '80s movie, even if it's bad or even if it's not an '80s movie, we don't care. You just want to go and you want to have fun. We could talk about how Top Gun's a gay movie, and there's a lot of theories about that. People joked about it. So when I'm serious, you could ride me anytime. All these things, right? The volleyball scene.
Tarantino, yeah, it wasn't that.
Yeah.
You could be my wingman anytime.
Yeah,
Change.
This movie is supposed to be just fun, and it just I can only recommend it if you're fans of these guys, or if you want to go, hey, what's an obscure '80s movies that somehow still has life, even though nobody seems to like it? That's this film. Like nobody likes Beverly Hills Ninja, but everybody talks about starts laughing. Like, do you like it? They're like, no, I hated it. I'm like, but you're laughing.
Beverly Hills Ninja. Oh, because Chris Farley. Yes.
Yeah.
It's just one of those movies where you're gonna watch it once, and then you're like, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, just watch it." He's like, "Oh my god, you watch it?" It's almost like a passing of whatever ritual pass, a rite of
All right.
passage.
So Saturday, Professor Pixel and I are going to be going live. I believe it'll be 6 p.m. Eastern. Whenever we switch from season 1 of a TV show to another season 1 of another TV show, we throw in a James Bond movie. So we're going to be doing License to Kill. It's one of the better James Bond movies. It's the one that has Timothy Dalton in it that loses his license to kill, and Robert Davi's in it. This movie is insanely good. It really is great. So we're going to be doing that live.
It's all Blood Diamonds.
Yeah, it's and the Bond woman. It's really, really great.
Benicio del Toro, his first debut.
That is correct. He's a henchman in there. Robert Davi is just phenomenal in it. But you decide when you watch it or listen to us, and then watch it what you think too. Then of course we'll be starting the next set of Bond movies after the next season 1, which is on a short list now to be determined. We're going to be putting a poll up here with some choices here shortly, so be looking for that. We'll retweet that out, and we'll get to see what you guys select for us to review for you next week here on the Extreme Movie Show. Anything else, RDV?
I was just saying after The Living Daylights. Or no, was it License to Kill?
Correct.
Yeah, it's License to Kill. Yeah, you just did Living Daylights, didn't
you? Yeah, like 6 months ago.
Yeah, so
before.
It feels longer than that. It's been a while. Yes. But after License to Kill, you guys go on the GoldenEye.
That is correct, sir. That'll probably be in the fall after the next season 1. Yeah, yes. That's our schedule for that. For those that did not know, but we got to show this young 20-something guy all the James Bond movies, because he doesn't understand when people are fighting, they're really flirting, and so it's just one of those things to kind of break through that wall of pop culture today that doesn't exist. That's why the Extreme Movie Show lives on. In this,
it's all for you to it's all play. Rob Bush wants to prove that Roger Moore is the best Bond.
He may not be the best, but everybody loves him the most. He is the Bill Murray of it, and there you go.
I disagree. I think Connery is the best.
Very limited, actually.
Very limited. Because
argument can be made he's one of the worst, but I think everybody agrees that the latest guy is the worst.
Oh, he basically turned it into the worst. He started off strong. Casino Royale was a good movie.
Yeah.
I still like
about that a couple years from now when we get into his films.
Hey, Quantum of Solace. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. Pierce Brosnan, with the freaking driving on the ice, the snow.
Limp.
I said, this goes some good stuff. All right, guys. You guys know the drill. Click like, subscribe if you haven't done so, and then guys, tell us down below in the comment section what you thought of this movie. We'll see you on Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Later.
Good night now.